fire's old, and when stars are in light, though we burn, we would know.
Hey everyone, welcome back to She Births Podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Nisho, and today's guest is Jeremy. Hi, Jeremy.
Hello.
Thank you for being a guest again. We're trying this again.
Well, second time's a charm. Is that how it goes? Yeah.
Yes. So can you tell my listeners a little bit about yourself and the type of books you write?
Well, I am a horror writer. I released my first book, The Lodge, back in July. The next book, Reptiles, coming out in this upcoming March.
Yeah.
I've done all kinds of fun stuff until I finally got back on the path of writing stories. But yeah, software engineer. I was in the Army. I've done all kinds of fun stuff. Security guard,
Nice.
catering.
So do you do writing full time now?
Yes, that's all I do. That's all I do is writing.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
I finally got back on the right path.
yeah, I look forward to reading more books from you, especially if they're a horror.
They are. Well, Reptile is kind of a dark fantasy horror, which I don't think you could really say The Lodge. I always thought of that one as like a supernatural thriller, but you know, people tell me it's more horror than thriller. So okay, whatever. I mean, I just tell the story.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about your book that came out, The Lodge. So what was the hardest part of writing that book?
The Lodge was actually one of those rare gifts where the universe just opens up and just drops it right in your lap, just ready to go, totally complete. I was taking my kids to school, and on the drive there, we go by this old, dilapidated bed and breakfast called the Maple Lodge, and I remember thinking to myself, that looks like the devil's bed and breakfast. And then, boom, the whole story was just right there. Characters, plot twists, all that fun stuff. It just fell in my lap in one big piece.
Wow. So are any of the characters based on people that you know in real life, or was they just made up?
Some of the characters are based on people I know. Some of them are made up. Some of them are sort of amalgamations of 2 or 3 people that I've known, and I've just kind of taken their quirkier traits and put them together.
So who is your favorite character in your book?
Without a doubt, my favorite character is Shirley.
Why?
I loved writing about Shirley. She is so much fun. You know, she's a slightly older woman. She's a black widow. She's a serial killer. She buries people in her garden, and then she gets hired to work at this lodge for the devil. And Shirley was just, she was a good time. She was a good time writing about her.
Oh, wow. It kind of reminds me of that one old lady serial killer, the one that's everyone's grandmother, but she was like burying her tenants in her backyard.
Kind of took a little inspiration from that. I believe that was in Britain, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
I do. I would tell you her name off the top of my head, but I can't seem to get a hold of it. But yes, partly inspired by her.
Oh, wow. So did you have to do like a lot of research for this book?
Oh, only when I'm trying to get the fine points right. Like, I mean, there are things like you know, I'm not really a wine guy, but there's a scene that involved you know, some knowledge of fine wines, so I had to educate myself a little on that. You know, I mean, just here and there, little fine points like that required research, and yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, writer work. I'm sure any writer would tell you the same.
Oh, okay. Okay. So how did you come up for the title of your book? Like, was it based on somewhere you've been?
Well, I actually my title got rejected by my
Oh.
publisher. The Wicked House was my publisher for that book, and I originally entitled it Maple Lodge after the name of the place that we drove by was
Mhm.
Maple Lodge. But my publisher said that didn't strike or put him in the mind of horror.
Hmm.
So he didn't like it, and we went back and forth on a bunch of different ideas, and finally he just said, "How about the lodge?"
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I kind of see the point, like why he would say that. I see that. But before, whenever we did this, tried to do this interview before, there was a comment in the comment section, and I got a glimpse of it. But I remember they asked you, "What is your inspiration for being a writer?" I remember that, and then he asked another question, but I didn't get that one. But I got the first one.
Well, I was first published when I was 6 years old, and
Oh.
that may or may not have to do with the fact that my mother was editor of the magazine.
Oh.
Uh, I won't confirm or deny, but to be perfectly honest with you, I never really fit in anywhere. All the jobs that I've ever done, uh, I'm usually odd man out,
Yeah.
and it just uh, finally occurred to me that I should stop trying to force the square peg in the round hole. You know,
Mhm. Yeah.
and I've always been good at telling stories. It's always something that I mean, I would do that for my kids. I would do that, uh, for uh, wives, girlfriends. I mean, just have fun making stuff up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
and finally, it just hit me that okay, this is what I should be doing. Like I said, it felt like I got picked up and tossed back on the right path. And yeah, I started writing. I started uh, sending stuff out, and next thing I knew, I was being invited to conferences, and
Oh,
and
nice.
I mean, I've been steadily ignored by the New York agents and Big Five, but yeah,
It didn't get picked up. Just have faith. It didn't get picked up. It's definitely a good story. It's definitely a good story. I do want to like point out that out of all of the 300 authors that I've interviewed, y'all like the type of personality an author has is like the oddball out. Like they want to do writing full time because it's like doing a 9 to 5 job or working with a large group of people. They're like, man, they rather be by themselves and write, have their
well,
own little
here I thought it was just me falling on my face over and over again. I'm fired from this job and sent home from that one, and it's like, I just don't have the right attitude. I suppose I don't know how to fix that. You know,
I did want to ask you, what's the most valuable piece of advice you've been given about writing?
uh, that I've been giving, or that I would pass on, because it's really kind of the same thing, and that's
Yeah.
uh, thick skin. Be
Yeah.
patient. Be uh, I know how hard it is to put together a story. To get it from concept to those final edits, and you want all the world to just embrace your brilliance, and oh yes, he's wonderful, and they're fabulous, and let's go ahead and just throw money at him now. Uh, Probably not going to happen that way.
Right.
Uh, you're going to have folks that don't even look at it. You're going to have folks that ignore. Uh, you're going to have a lot of rejection just
Mhm.
out of hand. And really, all you can do about it is, drink water and take Motrin and just drive on. You know,
That's that's true. That's true. Gotta have a thick skin. So do you
but
have
you,
a
you
copy?
you can't get angry. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't get angry. You can't get frustrated. You can't, you know, send nasty emails. Hey, why aren't you talking to me? What's wrong with you? I'm fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a good way to shoot yourself in the foot. Yeah.
Right. That's true. That's true. Do you have a copy of your book like on hand with you? Or
Well, of the lodge.
yes.
Absolutely, I'd have to run and go get it, but it wouldn't take me
Oh,
but a minute.
okay. Okay. Because I wanted you to like read like your favorite part in there for the listeners.
Oh boy, read my favorite part.
Yes. Just to give them a little glimpse to make them want to buy it. Because I know I want to buy it after reading the little part right there. I'm like, ooh, I want this. I wish it was on audiobook so I can read it at work.
Well, they keep telling me they're working on an audiobook, but I haven't had it yet. Here, give me just 1 second, and
Okay.
I'll go grab a copy and we'll see what we see.
Okay. I'm going to bring up this. Okay. So as you all can see, I pulled up his Amazon where you can get the paperback. And let me go on here real quick. Okay. And you can purchase it for $14.99 paperback, and it's on Kindle Unlimited for $0, or you can buy it for $8.99. So that's pretty cool. I can't wait to hear him read it. Okay.
Oh, and this is teeny tiny print.
You said it's teeny tiny print.
I did. I thought, oh man.
Your eyesight is like mine.
Yeah, I looked at it and I thought, oh boy, that's just not gonna work. Uh, so we're gonna just adjust fire real quick, no problem. Uh, and we'll go ahead and bring that up. Okay. Now, a little bit of background as to what's going on here. This is the introduction to the protagonist. His name's Aaron Weaver,
Mhm.
and what he's doing right now is he's a detective. This is his last case, and he's going to go with the SWAT team and raid the house of a suspected child killer.
Mhm.
Uh, so they're all bunched up, and the story begins uh, with them breaking into the house, and I got you caught up, and I'll start from there. How about that?
Cool.
Okay, Weaver did a slow 360 in the middle of the living room. He interrupted the SWAT team, not that it mattered. Entry to the premises had been gained. His skills as a detective were needed. He was needed. He forced himself to be still, empty, keep his mind open the way he'd been taught. Calm down, he thought. Breathe. Where is he? We know he's home. Where did he go? Breathe. Inhale. Exhale. Open your eyes. Find him.
Mhm.
Weaver stopped turning. Opening his eyes, he faced the kitchen. He walked over, searching for a fresh anything to make itself known, and then he saw it. Small scrapes on the kitchen tile. Against the white, they were barely visible. Weaver noticed dirt collected in shallow grooves, scrapes from a large piece of furniture being dragged on the floor. A piece of furniture. The fridge, he pointed, moving closer to the appliance. The Samsung sat at a slight angle. In such an orderly space, the appliance might as well have been in the middle of the floor. Help me move the damn fridge. He's behind it. He's in the wall. SWAT reacted instantly. Officers Hill and Wilson quickly pushed the large two-door unit to the side. They had worked with Weaver enough to respect his peculiar ability to notice things that others missed. If he said their boy was behind the fridge, they believed him. The other officers were stacking in the kitchen, preparing to make another entry. Years of training told them exactly what needed doing. Behind the refrigerator, a hole had been dug into the wall. Crude earthen stairs had been cut through the foundation, leading into the dark below the house. Their boy had heard them coming. A panel installed on the back of the Samsung contained a bolt lock securing the unit to the wall. Engaged, moving the Samsung would have been all but impossible. Breaking through would have taken hours. But he had run for the secret compartment and either forgotten or hadn't had time to set the lock behind him before SWAT came knocking. The stank from the hole was tremendous. Rot, pain, and despair. Please God, he thought, let the child be alive. Let us be here in time. The door had been slightly open. The killer hurried, hadn't locked up behind himself. Those thoughts kept ticking in the back of Weaver's mind. He felt events spiraling out of control. Something very wrong was happening. They weren't moving fast enough. Weaver had hunted him for 3 years, a degenerate of the worst kind, child killer. Worse, the murderer was a ghost haunting Southwest Virginia. Never crossing state lines, he effectively kept the Federal Bureau of Investigation officially uninvolved. He kidnapped children between the ages of 2 and 9. He liked them young. He assaulted, tortured, killed babies, leaving broken, mauled bodies in his wake. Over 3 years, Weaver had assigned 12 deaths with another 4 possibles, where the kidnapping matched their mystery man's modus operandi. The newspapers called the guy Old Snapper based on the condition of the remains. Weaver was disgusted with the lack of respect shown for the victims. He broke into homes where there were at least 3 children, always taking the youngest. Finally, he'd made a mistake. He'd broken into the home on the rich northeast side of Roanoke with private surveillance. Somehow he'd missed the cameras all around the property. The security company had notified the police as he was taking 4-year-old Jaron Banks from the home. The cameras had even provided a clear picture of the make and model of the car. And through the miracle of high definition photographer, they had a license plate. An Amber Alert was issued before the perp had pulled away from the house. An alert patrol car had spotted the perp's car moving south on Williamson Drive and had followed discreetly until they sat on the address in the well-to-do Woodcliff neighborhood while Weaver was notified. Warrants were fast-tracked. SWAT was mobilized. The raid planned less than 2 hours after the kidnapping. A miracle of circumstance, timing, and good police work. Running the plates had returned the name of Ben Stockmore. Stockmore was as vanilla bean as they came. Years after his rampage began, Weaver finally had a name, a face to put with the killings. Finally, a suspect, more than a suspect. They had their guy. No priors, no arrests, no parking tickets, nothing from his history indicated Stockmore would be a vicious child killer. Surprisingly, the guy had used his own car in commission of a crime. Weaver would never know if it was arrogance or stupidity on the part of Stockmore. But time was ticking. Weaver broke protocol, moving ahead of the stack. SWAT wasn't happy with Weaver endangering himself. They'd take the blame if any team member got hurt. Complaints would come later. The team sensed they were losing time. No one wanted to be responsible for another death. Weaver rushed into the black, where the darkness was broken by a single bulb hanging in the middle of a claustrophobic hallway. 4 doors, 2 on each side, stood closed, with a 5th opened at the far end. The awful stank was coming from the hidden rooms lining the hallway. Earthen walls and ceilings supported by wooden beams near the entrance. Middle and end of the hall leaned precariously. The doors hung from crude frames bolted into the surrounding earth. Cells which wouldn't hold an adult captive would keep a child in prison just fine. There was a narrow window in the middle of each door. Presumably Stockmore watched the suffering on the other side. Weaver took a quick look as he passed the first cell on the right. He wished he hadn't. At a glance, he saw several small bodies in various states of decay. This was so much worse than Weaver thought. How many children had died here? As he passed the window, weapon drawn and ready, he thought he'd seen bite marks on a tiny arm, a little hand missing 2 fingers, reaching for help which never arrived. Don't think about it. Focus. Find this fuck. Sounds of struggling were coming from the darkness beyond the end of the hall. Weaver hurried ahead as SWAT cleared the cells behind him. Jesus, he's been chewing on the bodies. Weaver didn't recognize the voice. He burst through into the killer's den. Stockmore was kneeling, holding baby Jaren by the jaw, in one hand with his other on a large hunting knife. Jaren was crying, one eye swollen, almost completely shut. Weaver leveled his weapon on Stockmore's head. The coward was using the little boy as a shield. Careful, officer. Don't hit the boy. The knife moved closer to Jaren's tender throat. Blood, presumably from the children outside, dripped from Stockmore's face and dribbled down Jaren's chest. Let him go. You're done here. Oh, I have something else needs doing before I go. The knife pressed hard enough to dimple the boy's flesh, although he hadn't drawn blood yet. That's not going to happen. SWAT burst into the room, filling the doorway, fanning out behind Weaver. Stockmore found himself surrounded by angry police with a dirt wall at his back. Detective, we have 2 more deceased. Officer Hill nodded toward the hallway, never moving his gun sight from Stockmore's forehead. Appears he ran through and slashed throats on the way here. They're all dead, detective. Ooh, very good. You should be the detective. Stockmore's voice was calm and even, but his eyes betrayed panic, flicking between all of the hard faces holding semi-automatic weapons on him. Weaver stepped forward a half step to regain Stockmore's focus. Jaren was brave, trying not to cry, but the knife was hurting. Speaking of detectives, however did you find me? Stockmore jerked Jaren against him, hard enough to let the knife bite. Just enough. I'm a detective, and you're a moron. That's how I found you. You got stupid, now you're caught. Let Jaren go. Let him go. I'll do you this one favor. I won't let SWAT turn you into a fine pink mist. Life in prison with no parole is the best you're going to get. No need for snark, detective. I was merely curious as to how you found me. I've got police in my sanctuary after 2 years of nothing. Stockmore lowered the knife some. Let them see the blood running so they knew he was serious. He might leverage his way to his car, maybe even escape, build a new sanctuary. He changed his name, of course. He'd done that before. New identities were easy if you wanted. He was 42. Ben had been killing, moving, evolving for 27 years. This was the closest they'd ever come. He was genuinely curious as to what happened. Detective, take these men and leave my house. I'll follow you with Sweet Pumpkin here. We'll get in my car. I'll drop him off on a corner when I'll feel safe. I'll call you to let you know where. Otherwise, I'll just open him up. One last hurrah. No, we aren't going to do that. We aren't leaving, and you aren't hurting anyone else. Oh, but I am leaving, detective. You're wrong. Even if you manage to arrest me, which I will not allow, this child's blood will be on your hands. I will cut his throat, and then you'll put the cuffs on me. I'll go to a mental hospital because I must be crazy. I'll escape. You'll never find me, and I'll kill everyone who's ever heard of you. Or you do what I say, I disappear, and all of your people sleep soundly. That's the best deal you're going to get. Stockmore raised his knife, smiling at Weaver. Stockmore's head was covered in little green dots. Lasers from the SWAT's weapon sights were ready to guide rounds into Stockmore's skull from every possible angle. Sir, you give the word and we'll remove his head from his shoulders, and I'll personally take Jaren from ice cream. Weaver held a steadying hand to Officer Hill without removing his gaze from Stockmore. Hill was barely controlled fury. Death was in the room watching, hovering, waiting. The entire time had eyes filled with murder. Jaren screamed as Stockmore ran the knife down his arm, drawing blood. He was crying. Men's hard breathing and the boy's sobbing echoed against the damp earth. Jaren's bladder let loose. Weaver's heart broke watching Jaren struggle to escape the monster hurting him, crying for help, for his mama. It was enough. Detective Weaver centered his sights above Stockmore's right eye. The shot 8 feet away, tops, easy peasy. Stockmore's days of terrorizing families would end here today in this stinking hole he dug under his house, not in court or a padded cell, blissfully unaware of the confinements of his confinement thanks to 500 milligrams of Thorazine every 6 hours. The game ended here. Weaver looked at Jaron crying for his mother, one eye swollen shut, blood running off his tiny fingers into the dirt floor. He was so small. Jaron was going home, period. This guy was going to hell. Stockmore's face had twisted into a mask of hatred, veins at his forehead pulsing, face red, spittle flying from his mouth. I said, get the fuck out of my way. I'll gut him right now. No, Ben, you won't. And Detective Weaver pulled the trigger.
Ooh, that's really, really good. Really, really good. I can't wait to read it.
That is the introduction to the story. Thank you.
Oh man, and you definitely should do audiobook and you should read it yourself because you have a good reading voice.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Wow. I don't know what to say. His character is really scary. So is he going to be one of the people that's in the lodge too? Like, is he one of the main characters as well?
Well, Detective Weaver becomes very conflicted over deciding to pull the trigger on the serial killer rather than arrest him and let the justice system handle it.
Mm-hmm.
He has a lot of problems with feeling like he threw his life away. His honorable career meant nothing because in the end, what he chose was vengeance,
Mm-hmm.
instead of justice.
Yeah.
Which is something that the devil in the lodge, his name is Solomon, which is something that Solomon takes advantage of. Crawls right up in his head, tells him what a horrible human being he is for, killing when thou shalt not.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that whole storyline. I did want to bring up the reptile, or is it just reptile?
Reptile, yes,
Just
just
reptile.
reptile.
Okay, can you give us like a little bit about that and the characters in that?
Well, sure. The main character is it starts off that he's a young guy doing his first year of high school. His name is Mark Branton, but the story takes place over the years of high school and then afterwards as he matures. But in the beginning, Mark is going camping where he runs into a strange man in the woods, and I'll say a bit of magic happens, and then Mark begins to notice that he can do things that he's never done before. He's strong, he's fast, and he's never been an athlete. He likes to sit inside and play World of Warcraft. The colors are more vibrant. He can smell just everything around him. And as he becomes the reptile, he tries to do right and take care of people and do the right thing by people. But what's that saying about the road to hell is paved with good intentions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark has a lot of trouble with his good intentions blowing up in his face. It's a fun read. I mean, it's full of my dark humor. I mean, my mother would tell you that her favorite scene in it would be when the boy is sitting in biology class and he begins to turn, and he's never done that before. He can't control it, and his claws shoot out, blow out the end of his shoes, and he's digging holes in the ground, trying to get out of class before somebody sees what's going on with him. And yeah.
Man.
So there's a little bit of humor there, but it's really a grown up story. It's a dark urban fantasy / horror. I've got all kinds of fun monsters in there because I was really having fun with lycanthropy and the thought of people turning into different critters. So I've got wasp women, and I've got the reptile, and I've got um,
Mm.
gargoyles and werewolves and werebears and all kinds of fun stuff that he Mark eventually comes into contact with.
Ooh, I feel like that story could have like spin-off stories as well, like other
Well,
stories.
it's funny you should mention that because I designed it as a standalone book, but it's the beginning of a series. I've actually got 3 more of the reptile series written.
Oh wow.
Uh, but I mean, there's a lot more to it than just starting and finishing the story. There's a lot of editing and cleanup and more editing and more editing and more editing, and before it's anywhere near ready to go. Uh,
Neat.
so I have gotten very positive reviews from the advanced reader copies that I put out. My uh, publisher at Wicked House has readers that uh, they judge on a scale of 1 to 10,
Mhm.
and my average with all of the readers for Reptile was a 9.5.
Wow.
We just couldn't fit Reptile in the publishing schedule in the time I wanted, because I wanted it to come out in the spring.
Mhm.
And I mean, indie publishers can only do so much.
Mhm.
So I took it to another publisher, and that was Unveiling Nightmares, and she actually called me back the next day after I sent it to. It was amazing. It was like less than 12-hour turnaround. I'd never experienced that before. Uh, and yeah, it was less than 12 hours after I submitted it to her. She was saying, I want to publish this.
Wow.
So I've got hopes for it. I mean, it's testing well. I'm very proud of it. It's uh, hopefully it will be as good or better than Maple. Or I'm sorry, The Lodge. To me, it will always be Maple.
Yeah, definitely. And when does this come out again? I want to know so I can get that too.
Reptile comes out March 15th.
March 15th. Okay, I'm gonna look out for it.
Hopefully, I'm allowed to say that because the word is out now.
Well, I look forward to reading both of your books and doing them on my review podcast because I have a book
Oh,
review
please
podcast.
do. Please do. I would love that. That would just be excellent.
Uh-oh, internet's going.
Uh-oh. Are we still messing up? Oh, God.
Can you hear me? Okay, it went
I
off
can
again.
hear you. Oh
Okay.
man, I'm sweating bullets over here.
But I want to thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast and telling my listeners about your story and your books and
Well,
everything.
thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me read. That was wonderful.
Thank you so much. You have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for listening to She Blurbs podcast with today's guest, Jeremy. So, if you would like to purchase his book, as I said earlier, it is on Amazon. It is $14.99 for paperback, and then on Kindle Unlimited, it's free, or you can pay $8.99 to buy it. And It's 248 pages. It came out of July 27th on the 23rd of 2023. And yeah, just check it out. It seems like a really good book to me. It does, because I love horror. So yeah, so I hope you all check it out, and thank you all so much for listening, and see you next time. Bye.